The junkyard whispers. The wind blew dust across the silent junkyard. Rusted metal, broken ships, and forgotten machines lay in piles. It was a graveyard of things no one wanted anymore. But for Jack, a middle-aged human man with strong hands and kind eyes, it was the perfect place to find spare parts. Jack walked slowly, boots crunching on shattered glass and metal. He had a toolbox in one hand and a scrap scanner in the other. His breath showed in the cold air, and his jacket was patched from old jobs. He wasn't rich. He lived in a small home outside the city and fixed old machines for a living. He moved, past a crushed cargo ship, and heard something strange. A whisper. He stopped. His head turned. "Mama?" The voice was soft, weak, not human. Jack crouched and listened carefully. The sound came again, this time with a sniffle, like someone trying not to cry. He walked slowly toward the noise, heart beating a little faster. He pushed aside a loose metal sheet, and then he saw her. A small alien girl, no older than 7 or 8, was huddled inside a broken crate. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and glowing faintly in the dark. She was thin, too thin. Her clothes were torn and her hair was messy with dirt and grease. Next to her lay a woman, her mother, unmoving. The woman's face was hollow. Her breathing was shallow. Her arms were wrapped protectively around the child even in sleep, or maybe in weakness. Jack looked at the girl. She stared back, afraid. Jack raised both hands slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl didn't speak. She just clutched her mother tighter. Jack looked around. No cameras, no patrol drones nearby. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. "You shouldn't be in a place like this." The girl didn't answer, but her eyes said enough: fear, hunger, loneliness. Jack knelt beside them. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The girl nodded. Jack opened his bag and pulled out a protein bar and a small water bottle. He handed them over slowly. The girl hesitated, then took the food and gave a tiny nod of thanks. Jack looked at the woman again. She was cold to the touch, but she was still alive. "This place, it's no home," Jack muttered to himself. He knew aliens like them were sometimes abandoned. Smugglers dumped people they couldn't sell. Others were refugees. No ID, no money, no rights. The city didn't care, but Jack did. He looked around. The wind was picking up. Rain clouds were forming above. The junkyard would be freezing soon. "I can't leave you here," he whispered. He stood and began collecting metal sheets, cloth scraps, and an old heat coil from a broken cooking bot. In 30 minutes he built a small shelter, a lean-to, with 3 walls and a roof. He placed the coil inside and powered it with his portable battery. The warm air filled the space. The girl blinked, surprised by the warmth. She looked up at Jack. Her lips moved, but the words were soft and broken. "Thank you." Jack gave a small smile. "You're welcome." He wrapped the mother in an old blanket and placed a small lamp inside the shelter. The rain started falling, soft at first, then heavy. Jack stayed outside under a scrap roof, watching the entrance in case patrols came by. He didn't care about his cold hands or wet boots. He just watched the little girl as she curled beside her mom, finally closing her eyes in safety. That night, Jack sat with his back against a rusty wall, holding his wrench like a weapon. He didn't know who they were. He didn't know their story. But one thing was clear. No one deserved to be thrown away. And as the rain poured over the junkyard, Jack made a silent promise to the girl inside. "You're not alone anymore." Rust and rain poured over the junkyard like falling glass. Each drop made a soft tapping sound on the broken metal around Jack. He pulled his jacket tighter and checked the small shelter he had built the night before. Inside, the little alien girl was still sleeping beside her mother. The woman looked pale, her skin dry and cold. But she was breathing. Jack carefully stepped into the shelter, holding a small metal bowl filled with warm broth he made from emergency rations. The smell was simple but comforting. He placed it beside the girl and gently tapped the side of the crate. The girl woke slowly, blinking at him. Jack smiled. "Morning. I brought something warm." She stared at the bowl, then at him. Slowly, she reached out, her tiny hands shaking. She slurped the broth quietly, trying not to spill it. Jack watched her. Even in the rain, even in the trash, there was something innocent in her eyes, something pure. "I'm Jack," he said softly. The girl looked at him, confused. He pointed to himself again. "Jack." She tilted her head. Then, she placed a hand on her chest and said, "Luma?" Jack smiled. "Luma, that's a nice name." She nodded and pointed to her mother. "Ziri. Ziri, is she sick?" Luma nodded slowly. Her voice was like a whisper. "No food. No warm. Too cold." Jack checked Ziri's forehead. It was cold but slightly warmer than before. The heat coil was working, but she needed real care. Medicine, rest, and better food. Jack stood up and looked around. The junkyard was endless, full of broken machines and old ships. Somewhere in all that trash he had to find the right parts. "I'll be back," he said. "Stay inside." Luma held his sleeve gently. "Scary." Jack knelt beside her. "I won't go far, I'll be fast, I promise." He left his flashlight with her and grabbed his scanner. The wind had turned sharp, carrying a smell of rust and oil. He moved fast, checking old crates, broken robot shells, and storage pods. Then he found it, a medical kit inside a shattered ambulance drone. "Bingo," he whispered. Inside were old but usable supplies. Fever gel, water cleaner tablets, bandages, and nutrient packs. Jack grabbed them all and rushed back. Luma peeked out from the shelter. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. He knelt beside Ziri and gently placed the gel on her forehead. Then he tore open a nutrient pack and helped her sip. Ziri's eyes fluttered, slightly. For the first time she moved her lips. "Ma." The little girl gasped and held her mother's hand. Jack felt a deep warmth in his chest. Even in a junkyard, even in a storm, something beautiful was happening. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop. Jack repaired the shelter, made a better roof, and added a second heat coil using old parts. He found a soft rug and laid it under them. Luma sat quietly, watching Jack work. Then she reached into her tiny pocket and pulled out a small round object glowing softly like a crystal. She handed it to Jack. "What's this?" Luma placed it in his palm and covered his hand. "Papa's," she said. Jack looked at it carefully. It wasn't just a crystal. It was a memory stone, a rare alien item that recorded voices. He activated it. A soft voice played, "To my daughter, Luma. If you're hearing this, I love you. Be brave. Protect your mother. And if you find someone kind, trust them." The voice stopped. Luma was quiet. Jack swallowed hard. He gently handed it back. "He loved you very much." Luma wiped her eyes and held the crystal close to her chest. That night, Jack sat outside again, guarding the shelter. The rain had softened into a drizzle. The junkyard was quiet, but his mind wasn't. Who were they running from? Why were they left here? What would happen if someone found them? He looked up at the sky. Maybe helping one little girl and her sick mother wouldn't change the galaxy, but it mattered here, and sometimes that was enough. The silence passed. The rain stopped, but the air stayed cold. Mist rose from the junkyard like quiet ghosts. Jack lit a small fire using broken circuit boards and wires. He didn't speak much. His eyes kept watching the alien mother and her child, Ziri, and Luma. Ziri was awake now, but weak. She hadn't spoken much, just nodded slowly and held her daughter's hand. Jack gave her another warm drink and wrapped her in layers of scrap fabric he had stitched together. Luma sat beside her mother, her tiny legs crossed. She looked down, as if remembering something painful. Jack gave them space. He stepped away and sat by a broken cargo shuttle. He needed to think. They couldn't stay in a scrap tent forever. They needed a real shelter, walls, a roof, heat, protection, but most of all, a plan. Suddenly, a shadow moved near him. Jack turned quickly. It was Luma. She stood quietly, holding something in her hands, a small notebook made from stitched scrap paper. She offered it to him. Jack took it gently and opened the first page. There were drawings inside. Childlike but clear. A spaceship, a family, a crash, a group of angry aliens, chains, fire. Then, a cage. Jack turned the pages slowly. Each one told more of Luma's life. Her father had died. Her mother was taken by traders. They were sold, traded, left behind. The last picture showed the junkyard, and a human with kind eyes. It was him. Jack's chest tightened. "This is your story?" he asked. Luma nodded. She pointed to one page. It showed a group of aliens with masks. Dangerous-looking traders, hunters. "They left you here?" Jack asked. Luma pointed to her neck. There was a faint scar there. Jack understood. Collar, slave tag. He sighed, trying to stay calm. "I'm sorry, you didn't deserve this." Luma tilted her head. "Why you help?" Jack blinked. He thought for a moment. "Because no one helped me when I needed it. Long ago," he said. "I was alone too." Luma's eyes softened. Jack closed the book and gave it back. "You're strong, Luma," he said. "And I promise, I won't let anything happen to you or your mom." Later that day, Jack started searching deeper in the junkyard. He needed big pieces. Metal walls, solar panels, strong wires. He found part of an old space truck. Its frame was strong. He dragged it piece by piece near the shelter. Ziri watched him from inside. Her voice came, soft and rough. "You build home?" Jack turned. Her voice surprised him. She hadn't spoken clearly until now. "Yes," he said. "You need one." Ziri gave a weak smile. "No one builds for broken things." Jack looked at her seriously. "Everything in this junkyard is broken," he said, "but that doesn't mean it has no value." Ziri closed her eyes. Her hand rested on her daughter's head. By nightfall, Jack had built the base of the shelter. It was rough, made from scrap walls and pipes, but it stood strong. He installed solar panels and charged an old heater. He connected lights using wires from a crashed shuttle. Inside it glowed warm, dry, safe. Luma danced in a small circle when she saw the lights. Ziri lay on the new bed Jack built using broken crates and soft wires, her eyes filled with quiet tears. Jack stood outside, wiping sweat from his forehead. For the first time in years, he felt like he was building something that mattered, not for money, not for repair, but for life. That night, Luma gave him a drawing. It showed the three of them, Jack, Luma, and Ziri, standing together inside a glowing home. Jack placed the picture in his bag. The stars shone above. The junkyard, filled with rust and forgotten metal, had a small light now, a light of hope. But deep inside, Jack knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere out there, the ones who left them here might come back, and next time, he would be ready. The first spark morning broke over the junkyard like a quiet drumbeat. Faint sunlight touched the edges of rusted metal. For the first time in many days, the wind wasn't cruel. Inside the new shelter, the little alien girl, Luma, giggled softly as she touched the glowing light Jack had wired the night before. It wasn't much, a single bulb powered by scrap solar panels. But to her, it was magic. Jack stepped inside, with a bundle of wires, a small battery, and something rare, a cracked translator chip he had found inside an old cargo bot. Luma's eyes widened. He smiled and sat beside her. "I think I can fix this." Ziri, the mother, sat up slowly. Her voice was stronger than before. "What is it?" Jack showed her. "It will help us talk better. No more guessing, but it's old tech. I'll need time." He began soldering. Pieces together, his fingers moving fast. Luma watched like it was a show. Sparks flew as he twisted wires. The chip blinked, flickered, then buzzed. "Try speaking," Jack said. Ziri leaned in and said a single word in her language. The chip blinked and spoke in English. "Home." Jack laughed softly. "It works." Luma clapped her hands. "Home." Jack nodded. "Yes, you're home now." Ziri looked around at the scrap walls, the light, the small heater, and the simple beds made of padding and wire. "It is not pretty," she said, "but it is safe." Jack's smile faded slightly. "For now." Later that day, Jack explored deeper into the junkyard. He needed more parts, maybe a water filter, something for cooking, anything useful. The problem was, the deeper he went, the more dangerous it became. In the far corners of the junkyard, wild machines still moved. Old security bots that had gone mad, traps left by scavengers, and worst of all, eyes. Jack saw them, two shadows, watching him from behind a stack of crushed speeders. He didn't react. He kept walking, calmly, quietly, but inside, he was alert. He returned to the shelter with metal sheets and wires and quickly added a second door, a hidden one. He built a signal jammer using an old comms board and placed it above the roof to block trackers. Ziri watched him work. "You think someone is coming?" Jack didn't lie. "I saw someone." Ziri's face grew pale. "They found us." Jack looked at her. "Who are they?" She touched her scarred neck. "Slavers, traders. They dump what they don't sell. But if they learn we're alive, they return." Jack's jaw clenched. "Not this time." That night, while Luma slept, Jack sat outside beside a small fire made of melted plastics. Ziri sat next to him, wrapped in a thick cloth he had sewn from old flags. She looked at the stars. "I used to be a teacher," she said softly. "Before the war. Before the ships came." Jack listened. "I taught children how to read stars, how to dream of new worlds. Then, the war took everything. My planet, gone. My husband, gone. My voice, nearly gone." Jack didn't speak. He simply nodded. "You gave us light," Ziri whispered. "You gave my daughter her laugh again." Jack turned toward her. "I just fixed some wires." "No," she said. "You sparked something that was lost." The next morning, Jack gave Luma her first lesson in fixing things. He handed her a small screwdriver and showed her how to open a control panel without breaking it. She was a fast learner. When she managed to light a bulb on her own, she shouted, "Look!" Jack clapped. "Engineer in the making." Ziri smiled from the doorway, her arms crossed gently. But then the light flickered. Jack's smile faded. He checked the power. Everything was fine. The flicker came again. Then, a sharp beep from the signal jammer. Jack's heart dropped. "They're scanning us." Ziri grabbed Luma and pulled her close. Jack turned off the lights, powered down the heat coil, and pulled a camo sheet over the shelter. He whispered, "No one moves. No one speaks." Outside in the distance, a small drone flew by, silent, black, and deadly. It hovered, then moved on. Jack didn't breathe until it was gone. He looked at Ziri. The first spark always brings light, but it also brings attention. Ziri looked down. "What do we do now?" Jack stood tall. "We finish the home. Then, we make it invisible. Broken things can still shine." Night in the junkyard was colder than usual. The stars were sharp and still, but inside the scrap shelter it was warm, thanks to a small heater Jack had hidden inside a hollow engine block. Luma was asleep, holding her memory crystal tight against her chest. Ziri lay beside her, her hand gently resting on her daughter's shoulder. Jack sat by the door, eyes open, body still. The drone from yesterday had left, but it had changed something inside him. He no longer felt like a helper. He felt like a guardian. They were being hunted, but he wouldn't let them be taken again. At sunrise, Jack went to work. He covered the shelter's outside walls with trash, twisted pipes, broken panels, burnt wires, to make it look like just another pile of useless scrap. Inside, he added a new room, a hiding space behind a fake wall. It was small, dark, and tight, but safe. Ziri helped him lift a heavy metal door into place. Her strength had returned, slowly. "You don't have to do all this," she said. Jack looked at her, sweat on his forehead. "Yes, I do." Ziri watched him. "Why?" Jack didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, "Because broken things still shine." Later that day, Luma found something shiny near a busted drone, a long strip of gold-colored wire. She brought it to Jack proudly. "It sparkles," she said with a grin. Jack examined it. "Gold trace. Good find." He helped her wind the wire into a small spiral. Together they turned it into a necklace. Jack attached a tiny light at the center, powered by a battery the size of a bean. When Luma pressed it, the necklace glowed. Ziri's eyes filled with tears. "She hasn't smiled like this in months," she whispered. Jack looked at the girl and smiled too. She deserves more than a smile. Later, Jack found an old console panel and used it to fix the translator chip. With better communication, Ziri began sharing more of her story. "We were sold 3 times, she said, sitting beside the small fire. Once by pirates, once by a trader, once by someone who pretended to help." Jack's jaw tightened. "They called us useless," she continued. "They said I was too weak to work, said my daughter was too small to clean, so they left us here to die." Jack stared into the fire. "Not anymore." That night, something unexpected happened. Ziri stepped out of the shelter and walked to where Jack was repairing an old bot arm. She sat beside him and held out a piece of metal. It was carefully shaped and smoothed. "A gift," she said. Jack took it and turned it over. It was a small symbol, 2 hands holding a star. "I carved it with Luma," Ziri said. "It's the old sign of rebirth on our world." Jack looked at her. "Rebirth?" "Yes. When something is broken, but begins again." Jack nodded slowly. He placed the symbol around his neck using a string of wire. "Thank you," he said, "but peace never lasts long." The next morning, while digging through a wrecked storage truck, Jack found something dangerous, a tracker. It was half buried in the ground, blinking red. "Someone's marking this place," Jack muttered. He grabbed it carefully and ran back to the shelter. Ziri saw his face and knew something was wrong. "What is it?" Jack showed her. "They're coming. Not by accident, they're tracking everything." Luma clutched her mother's hand tightly. Jack quickly powered down the jammer and rerouted its signal to bounce into the hills. "If they follow the signal," he said, "they'll go the wrong way." Ziri looked scared. "And if they don't?" Jack looked at her with calm fire in his eyes. "Then we fight." That night, Jack opened his old backpack. At the bottom was a dusty metal box. Inside was a small plasma cutter, an energy knife, and a broken blaster. He had never told them this before. But Jack wasn't just a repairman. He had once been a soldier. He looked at Luma and Ziri, sleeping peacefully now. He touched the symbol on his chest, the hands holding the star. "They broke you," he whispered, "but I'll help you shine again." When scrap becomes a home, Jack woke before the sun. He sat quietly by the fire, sharpening the old energy knife. The junkyard was silent, but not peaceful. There was a tension in the air, like the quiet before a storm. He checked the signal jammer. It was still bouncing false signals to the hills, but he knew it wouldn't work forever. They would come, and he had to be ready. Inside the shelter, Ziri and Luma were asleep, curled under a blanket Jack had stitched together from old banners and thermal sheets. The soft hum of power came from hidden wires Jack had tucked into the walls. Light glowed from crystal bulbs shaped like stars. This place, it wasn't just shelter anymore. It was starting to feel like home. Jack stood and walked outside. The walls of scrap metal stood strong, but now he wanted to do more than hide. He wanted them to live. All day, he worked. He turned a broken starship panel into a roof that caught rain and filtered it into clean water. He used wires from communication towers to build a switch-powered alarm. If anyone entered the junkyard from the west, a small light would blink red inside their home. Luma helped him set up a garden tray. They filled it with dirt from the far end of the yard, real soil, and planted some seeds Jack had stored from old Earth shipments. Will they grow? Luma asked. Jack smiled. If we protect them. She looked up at him and nodded. Like us? Jack paused, then nodded slowly. Yes, just like you. By afternoon, the shelter had walls, light, a working stove, water storage, and a small garden. Even the wind outside couldn't shake it. Ziri stepped outside and stared at everything. You made a house, she said. Jack stood beside her. You made it a home. She looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. I never thought I would have one again. Luma came running out with a small metal flower Jack had shaped from broken fan blades. She placed it near the garden, laughing. Decoration, she shouted. Ziri laughed too. Her voice was soft, but it echoed in Jack's heart. That night, Ziri sat by the fire while Jack checked the power coils. She spoke slowly, her voice stronger now. When you found us, I thought you were a dream. Jack looked up. I thought you were a trick. I was scared too. Ziri nodded. The galaxy is not kind, especially to the weak. Jack shook his head. You're not weak, Ziri. You survived. She smiled gently. And you made something out of nothing. Jack shrugged. I fix things. That's what I do. She looked at him seriously. You didn't just fix wires, you fixed hearts. Jack didn't know what to say. Later, after Luma was asleep, Jack walked to the top of a junk pile where he had installed a solar receiver. The stars above were bright. Cold wind touched his face. He saw lights far in the distance. Not stars. Ships. His chest tightened. They were closer now. The fake signals wouldn't fool them much longer. He climbed down and returned to the shelter. He didn't wake them. He sat by the door, the blaster by his side, and watched the night. In the early hours of morning, Luma woke up and walked quietly to him. She sat beside him, sleepy-eyed. You can sleep, Jack, she whispered. He smiled. Not tonight. She leaned her head against his arm. You're like my papa. Jack froze. Luma looked up at him. He was kind. He told stories. He protected us. Like you. Jack looked away, blinking back a feeling he hadn't felt in years. I'm not your father, Luma, he said softly. She smiled. But you're our family now. And in that moment, something inside Jack shifted. He wasn't just helping anymore, he belonged. The junkyard hadn't changed. The sky was still dark. The metal still rusted. The danger still coming. But inside this little home built from scraps, hope was alive. Fight for the forgotten. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Jack was already awake. He stared at the blinking red light on the small control panel. The alarm had been triggered. Someone was in the junkyard. He stood silently, grabbed the blaster, and turned off the power to the shelter. The small home fell into darkness just like the rest of the forgotten land around it. Inside, Ziri opened her eyes. She knew the look on Jack's face. They're here, she whispered. Jack nodded. Stay, hidden. Take Luma to the crawl space. Don't come out unless I say so. Ziri didn't argue. She touched Jack's hand once, soft and quick, then scooped up her sleeping daughter and disappeared behind the fake wall. Jack was alone now, but he wasn't afraid. He climbed a broken ship frame and lay flat on the metal, watching the yard with a scope from an old rifle. Through the fog, he saw movement. 3 figures, tall, armored, not friendly. They walked slowly, scanning the junk with glowing devices. Slavers. They had come back. Jack gripped the blaster tight. He could take out one, maybe 2, but 3? He needed a plan. He slipped down the other side of the wreck and moved quietly, his boots landing on soft piles of trash. He circled around them and reached a tall stack of barrels. He opened a valve and let fuel drip. Then he struck a spark. Boom! The explosion wasn't big, but it was loud. Fire burst up, sending smoke and heat through the air. The slavers turned and ran toward the sound. Jack used the distraction. He moved fast, dropping scrap nets from above made from tangled wiring. One got caught. Another tripped. The third raised. A weapon. Jack didn't hesitate. He fired. The shot hit the slaver in the shoulder, dropping him to his knees. But then something unexpected happened. From the smoke, Luma ran out. "Jack!" she screamed. Jack's heart nearly stopped. "No, get back!" But it was too late. One slaver stood up, raised a blade, aimed at her. Jack leapt in front just in time, taking the hit on his arm. Pain burned through him. He fired again, this time straight. The slaver fell. Ziri came running now, eyes wild with fear. Jack shouted, "Get her inside!" Ziri scooped up Luma and ran back to the shelter. Jack stood, holding his bleeding arm, facing the last slaver. The man dropped his gun and raised his hands. "You don't have to die," he growled. "Give them back." Jack wiped blood from his face. "No. They're not yours. They're not even people." Jack's voice was low and cold. "Then neither am I." He raised the blaster. One final shot. By sunrise it was over. Smoke drifted over the junkyard. The slavers were gone. 2 escaped, 1 captured, 1 buried in scrap. Jack sat on a crate, wrapping his arm. Ziri walked over and sat beside him. She didn't say anything at first. Then she whispered, "You stayed." Jack looked at her. "Of course I did." She placed something in his hand. The memory crystal. "This belongs to you now," she said. "You've earned it." Jack shook his head. "That's your family's." Ziri touched his face. "You are family now." That night, the lights inside the shelter glowed warmly. The walls were stronger, the doors reinforced, the solar panels repaired. But more than that, the silence was peaceful, not empty. Peaceful. Luma sat by the fire, drawing a new picture. Jack, Ziri, and herself, standing together, smiling. Above their heads, she wrote one word in her alien language. Jack leaned in. "What does that say?" Ziri smiled. "It means home." Jack nodded slowly. "Then I'll protect it," he said. "No matter what." From broken wires, rusted metal, and thrown away lives, a home had been built, a family had formed, and a man who once walked the junkyard, alone, now had something worth fighting for.